Hello BookTube, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn, and this is my TBR for Shorty September. Well, August was a lot. I hosted my first event on BookTube, and I'm so pleased about how it turned out. In case you missed it, it was an event honoring Maya Angelou and all phenomenal women, authors, and mainly authors because this is a BookTube channel. But this month is Shorty September, and Shorty September was created by Bert from Pastori, and he's being helped or co-hosted by Heather. I just saw some chickens walking around from Too Many Heathers. Her channel used to be, I think, Soggy Expat, but now it's at Too Many Heathers, and I'll have that information down below. And I laughed because there are a lot of Heathers on BookTube, also a lot of Sarahs for some reason. But let me just tell you that this video might be a little dark at times, and alternatively light. So bear with me. The first books I'm going to talk about are new books for me. These all came from my shelves, and I just wanted to let you know what I think of Shorty September. A lot of I've been watching a lot of videos that said that they believe that Shorty September is where they can get through a lot of books on their shelves that are under 200 pages. And if you go look at the introduction, there are prompts. I only watched Heather's introduction, but there are a lot of fun prompts, but I'm not in any mood to do prompts right now. Even my own event, I only had 3 prompts, so I'm taking it easy on myself and maybe on others. But there are some dark books that I'm going to talk about, so I wanted to, give a warning before I start. Well, the first one, I don't know if it's not a dark book, but I bought it new. I always say I bought it new because that's rare for me to buy a book new. And I bought it almost a few years ago, actually, because it was very popular on BookTube. I had never heard of it. At that time I was looking for books by older women or about older women protagonists, preferably written by older women protagonists. And I found, and now it's coming back into popularity. So my copy is gorgeous, and it's Lolly Willowes by Sylvia Townsend Warner. And isn't that a gorgeous book cover? In fact, you can even use this for Framed in September, but I'm not talking about that right at the moment. And it's been called an early feminist book, which I appreciate, but it does have some magical realism, so I have to be careful with that. For me, I'm not really that much into magical realism. So okay, so what is it about? Lolly Willowes is a satirical comedy of manners, incorporating elements of fantasy. So it's the story of a middle-aged spinster who moves to a country village to escape her controlling relatives and takes up the practice of witchcraft. And the novel opens at the turn of the 20th century with Laura Willowes, and her family calls her Lolly, which, I really think has a lot to do with how this book is going to, turn out. That the elder people living in a household, maybe not married, are taken for granted. And I'm not saying, I haven't read it, so I don't know if that is, what this is about. And I think it was written in the early, let's see when it was written. It was written in 1926, so quite a while. And that it's a feminist book just makes it more exciting for me to finally pick it up. Okay, now the darkness starts. So I was told that the next book is esoteric. So I'm always very wary when I read that a book is esoteric. So I looked it up, and it says that esoteric is intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. So I'm saying to myself, is this book going to be for me? Now, I picked up this book at a library sale, one of the biggest library sales in Hawaii. And it was meant, I think, for students. So I'm thinking, okay, let me pick it up, because I do love translated Japanese fiction. I lived in Japan, and I'm always interested in learning more about Japanese culture and re-immersing myself in Japanese culture. And this is The House of the Sleeping Beauties and Other Stories by Yasunari Kawabata, translated by Edward Seidensticker. Let me just show you. So I bought this, not new, but it looks pretty good. And as you know, The Sleeping Beauty is also a fantasy, a fairy tale, and I'll tell you the problems I have with that. But this author was Japan's Nobel laureate, and what people say, Yukio Mishima, who's very famous, it was very famous in Japan, says it's an esoteric masterpiece. Sunday Times says it's compulsive reading. Financial Times says it's a poetic meditation of the twin themes of sexuality and death. And William F. Sibley, sounds familiar to me, one of the finest works of Kawabata's late career. And Saturday Review says it's revealing an astonishing honesty of vision. Irish Press says it's extraordinarily gripping. Why did I read all of these things to you? Because it seems to me that these are all male praises. I could be wrong. Now, what I didn't like when I read the synopsis of it is that this is a 1961 novella, okay? It's a story about a lonely old man, old Iguchi, who continuously visits the house of the Sleeping Beauties in hope of something more. So the titular house is an establishment where old men pay to sleep beside young girls that have been they have been giving narcotics. I never heard that word before, narcotized, and happen to be naked, the Sleeping Beauties. The old men are expected to take sleeping pills and share the bed for a whole night with a girl without attempting anything of bad taste, like putting a finger inside their mouths. And that's in quotes. Iguchi is presented with a different girl each time he visits the house because of the short notice of his visits. And he discovers that all the girls are virgins, which somehow compels him to comply with the house rules. Each girl is different, and the descriptions of his actions are mixed with the dreams that he has sleeping beside the girls. And it's sort of a meditation between life and death, sexuality. You know, that's all fine, but the story of the Sleeping Beauty and them being given narcotics just hits a little close to a lot of stories for me that are happening in true life, and I'm not going to go into them. Some happened a few years ago, some happened more recently, but just the thought of the Sleeping Beauty in general reminds me of a girl or a woman who has no agency, who, because of narcotics or whatever, poison, she's sleeping, and in that sleep she becomes unaware. And there's a famous case in France right now that I'm not going to talk about, that I just thought of, beside the other stories that I'm thinking of, that will, because of this, men can take advantage of her. Now, in this book, I'm assuming that the man is going through, he's old and he's going through some kind of crisis. And, this has dreams where the esoteric part comes out, meditation comes out. But still, just the thought of a sleeping beauty. And this has more than one story. And the whole book is 149 pages. So the contents are the House of the Sleeping Beauties, but it also has one arm, that's another story, and of birds and beasts. So please let me know if this book is going to be a book that is worthwhile for me, that makes it okay that I skip over all the things that come into my mind when thinking about women who have been given narcotics to sleep, whether they be, and they're young women or old women or any woman. So let me know what you think. Like I said, this is a little dark, but I bought this at where it's like I said, used library books, and a lot of books were donated by schools. So I'm thinking that this is given in high school. I'm not sure, I haven't read it. So, okay, well, the darkness will continue, but in a way that I can accept more readily, even though it's very dark. These are children's books, and they're about the Holocaust. I haven't read them, but I picked them up also in, I'm thinking it was either the same used library sale or another used library sale, and they're both Scholastic. And Elly, My True Story of the Holocaust, and it has a picture of a very, very pretty girl, blonde girl, just happens to be blonde with very blue eyes, which it's kind of ironic how many, during the Holocaust, how many people that actually looked like what the Nazis were saying was a typical, what a German girl should look like, but yet they were, because they were Jewish, they were discriminated and killed. So Elly, Berkovits, Gross. So what is it about? When Elly was just 15 years old, her mother and brother were deported by cattle car to the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. On the day they arrived at Auschwitz, a soldier directed Elly to the right. Her mother and brother was sent to the left. She never saw her family alive again. And she later learned that her father... Now, I don't want to... why do books always tell you exactly what's going to happen? I'm not going to read any further. But this is meant for, I guess, a middle grade or even younger. And this is another story. The next one is Hidden Child of the Holocaust, Scholastic, by Stacy Gretzmeyer. Let me show you this cover. These are all used books. And this is Ruth and her family live in the south of France. When the Nazis invade Paris during, I should have you see it while I read it. Many Jews in France must go into hiding. Ruth's family changes its identity. Her cousin tells Ruth that her name is now Renee, so that she blends in with the other French children. And when the Nazis move into southern France, the situation becomes desperate. And I won't read, it kind of tells you what's going to happen, but a lot of children were hidden. Not enough, but yeah. So these, I'm assuming, are not positive, but they don't have bad endings, at least for the children involved. So I guess that's why they're more suited for children. But like I said, I'm going to get a little darker because I'm reading books from off my shelf, and I do collect Holocaust books. Now, I did read one of these, but there was a follow-up. And I talked about Fragments of Isabella, and I found this on another booktuber's channel. I'll have her information down below, the booktuber who, it escapes my mind right now. But this book, it it broke me. And I also noticed that a lot of Holocaust memoirs tend to be short. And Isabella Leitner and her husband, Irving A. Leitner, explained in Isabella's words why it's short. She feels that each word in this book stands for 100 other words that were too painful to express. That really got me, give me chills. And it begins with, yesterday, May 29th, 1944, we were deported. So began the journey of the Katz family to Auschwitz. Seven of them would stand before the infamous Dr. Mengele, who, with a whistle and a flick of his thumb, would indicate who was to live and who was to die. And that's all I'm going to say about this book, but it is very, very powerful, very sad, very emotional. But there was a follow-up to this book, and it's called Fragments of Isabella. I haven't read this one yet. This one kind of broke me. And so Saving the Fragments says from Auschwitz to New York, and it's sort of the continuation of her memoir in sort of the way that Maya Angelou has a collection of memoirs. Isabel Leitner, as to my knowledge, only has these two. And it says here that in this powerful sequel to the highly acclaimed Fragments of Isabella, Isabella Leitner vividly recreates what happened when the Allies advanced through the smoldering ruins of Europe to save thousands of broken souls from certain death. And that's all I'm going to read about that. I hope to get to this month, if I'm able to. So Isabella Leitner is a memorable and eloquent witness of the great Jewish and human tragedy that we call the Holocaust. Her book translates a universal suffering into a poignant individual experience. And if I can handle this, I will get to it. Whew. Let's get on to some happier books. When I say happier, they have to be under 200 pages. And I looked on my in my shelves and saw what do I have that I haven't read. So this is going to be sort of an opposite kind of genre. Here we're talking about autobiographies. We're talking about translated fiction. Now we're going to talk about Josephine Tey and the Daughter of Time, which is highly acclaimed on BookTube, but I couldn't finish it. For some reason, I started reading it. I was expecting it to be different, and I put it down and I never picked it up. But I have most of the books that were re-released by Josephine Tey because I really, really love her as an author. So this is one of her Inspector Alan Grant books. And he's recuperating from a broken leg, becomes fascinated with a contemporary portrait of Richard III, which bears no resemblance to the wicked uncle of history. Could such a sensitive, noble face actually belong to one of the world's most heinous villains? A venomous hunchback who allegedly killed his beloved brother's children to make his crown secure? Or could Richard have been a victim, turned into a monster by the usurpers of England's throne? So it goes on from there. And New York Times says it's one of the best mysteries of all time. So I am ashamed of myself for putting it down. But I just wasn't expecting to go into a historical mystery. But yet I really love Alan Grant and I love Josephine Tey. So will I finish this? Convince me down below. I want to go into another book that I haven't read at all. And it was at the same, and it's maybe a little bit happier. And I got this at the same used library sale at our McKinley High School, which is very, very popular. And this has a gorgeous cover too. And it's the Sisters Rosen by Wendy Wasserstein, who very tragically died I think, of cancer at a young age. And it was, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's a play, because it was on Broadway. And I'm not sure if I was in Hawaii already, but it's a beautiful book cover. And I think it's more familiar to my understanding. And it was the best Broadway play of 1993 season by the Outer Critics Circle. I have a love of plays, and I have a love of Broadway. I was born in Brooklyn, and these three Jewish middle-aged sisters, originally from Brooklyn, come together to Queen Anne's Gate, London, to celebrate the 54th birthday of Sarah, the eldest now, a brilliant British banker. Divorced, a single mother, Sarah no longer sees the necessity for romance. The second sister, Gorgeous, is a suburban housewife and mother, as well as a talk show personality. And Fenny, journalist and travel writer, still hasn't written her serious book on the women of Tajikistan. So I guess it goes on from there. I don't know if it's funny. It says it's a captivating look at three uncommon women and their quest for love. Unfortunately, Hawaii Library Friends of the Hawaii Library sticker is on it, so I can't read any more. But I think I'm going to get to this book. It's under 200 pages, and I think it's a breath of fresh air, maybe, after reading some dark books. Now, some of the books that I have on my shelf that I just will talk about that I've read, but maybe want to tell you about really quickly, is the Perry Mason mysteries. And I think one of the prompts of Shorty September was to read some mystery books. And I became enthralled with Perry Mason through the books before the actual, well, no, that's not true. My mother, I was very small when the Perry Mason show came out with Raymond Burr, who my mother was enthralled with. She had a crush on him. And I wasn't allowed. It was on at 9 o'clock on Saturday, and I was at bed at 7:30. But during the reruns in the early 70s, I became enchanted with everything Perry Mason, and I went out and started buying the books. Unfortunately, when I came to Hawaii in 76, I couldn't bring them all with me, and I had some beautiful covers. I'll just show you one. This isn't one of the nice covers. It's The Case of the Haunted Husband. And I also have The Queenly Contestant. I was starting to look for the pulp fiction covers. They were kind of expensive, and I couldn't. I said, oh, I had such beautiful covers. But these are a fast read, and I think you'll love all of Perry Mason's, the cast of Perry Mason, all of the side characters, Della Street, Perry Drake, I think his name was. They come alive, and Earle Stanley Gardner was a wonderful writer. So let me just tell you really quick. On The Case of the Haunted Husband, a beautiful hitchhiker blamed for a fatal car crash, a mysterious dead man in a swank hotel room, a New Orleans woman with a missing husband, and a Hollywood screenwriter with a scathing history. For Della Street, Paul Drake, and Perry Mason, it adds up to another cracking good mystery. And in this one, The Queenly Contestant, it just says Perry Mason was fired. And I did like the cover of that book. Now I'm going to go to a mystery writer who I'm more serious about as my favorite mystery writer, maybe of all times after Agatha Christie, and that's Ruth Rendel. And her first book, it was hard for me to get this book, and it's not in wonderful shape, but it's her first mystery, From Doon with Death. I read it, and I would like to reread it. So we're introduced to her detective, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But what it says is, why would anyone want to strangle dear Mrs. Parsons? What strange, tormented passion ended in a prim, proper, and happily married woman being murdered in a dark and tangled wood? Why was a gaudy woman's garish tube of lipstick found near the body? Who was Doon, the writer of mysterious love letters to Mrs. Parsons? Two people knew the vital facts, but an old photograph held the vital clue. An old photo, an appeal of cruel, unguarded laughter. That sounds really scary, and I remember I loved it. The two detectives that Ruth Rendel introduces are Lieutenant Burden and Wexford, and I think she has a lot of other books with these two characters that she introduces here, and I think you'll find this quite delightful. The other book I picked up in the same library sale, Friends of the Library, is a book I haven't seen before. It's by Agatha Christie, but it's the play, and it was when she called it The 10 Little Indians, a mystery play in 3 acts by Samuel French. And I just thought that this was an unusual way of reading Agatha Christie. So I'm going to try to get to that, even though I read And Then There Were None many, many times. I haven't read it in a play form. And Agatha Christie wrote many plays. They're not unknown. So I'm going to end with Thich Nhat Hanh, How to Relax. And it's a book of meditation, and he's quite famous, and he says, we already have calmness within us. We just need to know how to make it manifest. So he explains how to achieve deep relaxation, control stress, and refresh our minds. He guides us toward healing and calm, at ease in our own company. We can all reap the benefits of relaxation no matter where we are. And I have started reading this already. And he talks about resting. And I think I read this line, but it really, sometimes the most simplest lines can be the most profound. And it says, whenever animals in the forest are wounded, they rest. They look for a very quiet place and just stay there without moving for many days. And we don't think of rest that way, that it's healing, but it really is. And I think that we have forgotten, in the US especially, how to really rest and to relax. And he also talks about, there's a lot of relaxing meditation for resting and relaxing. So I'm really looking forward to being relaxed on this this Shorty September. So I hope you enjoyed. I have other books that I'm going to talk about during Shorty September, but I hope one of these books will suit your fancy. Maybe I should just go over them real quick. So it's How to Relax by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I think he's a Buddhist monk actually. 10 Little Indians, the mystery play by Agatha Christie. Ruth Rendel, From Doon with Death. Earle Stanley Gardner, Perry Mason Solves the Case of the Queenly Contestant. Earle Stanley Gardner, The Case of the Haunted Husband. The Sisters Rosen by Wendy Wasserstein. Josephine Tays, The Daughter of Time. Saving the Fragments by Isabella Leitner with Irving A. Leitner. Fragments of Isabella, A Memoir of Auschwitz, including death camp language by Isabella Leitner. Hidden Child of the Holocaust by Stacy Gretzmeyer. Elly, My True Story of the Holocaust by Elly Berkovits Gross. House of the Sleeping Beauties and Other Stories by Yasunari Kawabata, translated by Edward Seidensticker. Or Lolly Willowes by Sylvia Townsend Warner, which is going to be my first Shorty September book that I'm going to attempt. So please tell me in the comments if you like this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. and let me know your thoughts about any of these books or my rambling dissertations on life and death. I'm just really making a bad joke, but I really appreciate you watching my channel. And until we meet again, I will urge you to watch the introductions, of the Shorty September, because it's one of my favorite events of the year. I think that I don't really look to clean off my shelf, but it's nice to look at my shelf and see what short books I can or I want to keep, or books that I don't want to. So it is a good way of cleaning out your shelves. I just don't like to competitively read, if that makes any sense. So until we meet again, I send you a big aloha and hang loose.